ultimately we want to see it done right, and it will be done right. But what we have done today is we are keeping families together. The borders are just as tough, just as strong. They can come in through ports of entry if they want. That's a whole different story. And that's coming in through a process, and the process is what we want.
Today's shift in policy comes after a growing amount of pressure on the White House. That pressure coming from public opinion to politicians. This morning, Democrats even brought children onto the House floor. Reporter Pat Pobletti from our Washington bureau has been following the debate and has today's developments.
President Trump's order was considered a victory for critics of his immigration policy. It said that the government would keep immigrant families together, but it would also keep them behind bars pending prosecution. President Trump was still blaming Congress today. Section 1 of his order reads, "It is unfortunate that Congress's failure to act and court orders have put the administration in the position of separating alien families to effectively enforce the law." But Congressman Raul Grijalva of Tucson doesn't see it that way. He said the order acknowledges that the White House is responsible for the damage its policy had caused.
It was his decision, a policy decision, him and Sessions, and they could take it back. And we kept saying that. You don't need legislation, just remove that policy. And so, in essence, he had to flip on it and say, yeah, it is my decision.
Earlier today, Grijalva and 16 other Democrats brought children onto the floor of the House of Representatives.
Oh, we wanted to send a message out. This is who they're attacking, children, just like the ones that surround us.
They wanted to put a face on just who the policy was affecting and brought kids from immigrant communities in the surrounding Virginia and Maryland suburbs into the Capitol and then to a press conference.
It is psychological torture what this administration is doing, and the Republicans in Congress are tolerating it. They are promoting it, promoting psychological torture against these young children.
As for the executive order released this afternoon, Grijalva believes that it could represent an improvement, but is also wary that it could lead to mass incarceration of immigrants.
We wanted to end family separation. We didn't necessarily, none of us really support the idea that now we can warehouse the whole family in a detention center for a misdemeanor.
The White House's change in policy comes as the House of Representatives prepares to vote on 2 Republican-backed immigration bills, potentially as early as tomorrow. What's unclear, however, is if either Republican-backed bill has the votes necessary to pass. Grijalva says the Democrats will oppose both. In Washington, Pat Pobletti, Cronkite News.
While the president said today that his administration is working to keep families together, many remain upset over what's transpired the past 2 months. Today, reporter Amanda Mason spoke with a group of those moms who planned a play date with our Arizona senators.
Moms, families, religious leaders gathered outside of Senator McCain and Flake's office in Phoenix to offer them teddy bears and encourage all the senators to keep families together. I spoke with the moms involved in bringing the community together and counter-protesters to explore both sides of the issue. Just 1 week ago, a Facebook group popped up naming itself End Family Separation to plan a rally today and collect teddy bears to urge Arizona senators to sign the Keep Families Together Act.
We pulled together as mothers because we couldn't imagine the pain of our children being taken from us. And I have to say, from a faith perspective, as a Jew, my people have been migrants and immigrants and asylum seekers, and I cannot look at another in the same position and deny them entry. It's just not right.
When I think about kids being separated from their families, I can hardly breathe. I don't know how the moms and dads in detention centers are able to carry on, and I don't know how the kids are able to even breathe either. I talked last night with a friend of mine who works in a detention center, and she said that there's a young 8-year-old boy that just came in a couple days ago, and he will not get up to eat or anything. He just cries.
This is Big Bear. He was donated by an 8- and 10-year-old, and these teddy bears are going to be given to kids in the detention center to symbolize a hug.
Tensions were high. Counter-protesters were also there, including conservative activist Eric Smalt, who believes in the law but says he also cares about the children.
It's a very challenging situation. The numbers are quite large, and maybe we have to reach out into our own community, these same people that are protesting. Maybe they need to offer a home to these individuals for the interim period of time. My feeling, a lot of what I'm talking about here is from the heart. It's not the legality of it. It's from the heart. These kids need to be taken care of in a humane fashion. And sometimes we have to do some unusual stuff that we haven't done before to make sure these children are cared for.
ASU professor Beth Swadner is still concerned about the trauma these kids experience and challenges the opinions of counter-protesters who have said that kids that cross the border are not with their parents.
They wouldn't come over unless their lives were at risk. They wouldn't make an arduous 4 to 6 week journey through Mexico to get here if they weren't desperate. So we can't do desperate things to desperate kids.
Now, even though there was an appointment to have 10 moms speak with a staff member from Senator Flake's office who would collect a letter from the group, no one showed up. One mom was detained for 2 hours in the office building and was eventually allowed to leave letters, children's books, and toys. The moms have an appointment with the regional director in the end of the week and in a different location. In the broadcast center, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich is a staunch supporter of enforcing immigration laws. On the AG website, he states that the crisis of confronting those who break laws to come to this country must be addressed more vigorously. While securing the border is essential to him, he spoke about including a way for DACA recipients to gain citizenship.
I think that there's a way that you can come up with a package that ensures not only border security, but fixes a path so there's some sort of certainty for kids that were brought here through no fault of their own.
Brnovich maintains more needs to be done to fix the border. He says the current level of federal enforcement is inadequate.
Border security and immigration will always be hot-button issues in Arizona. President Trump carried the state in 2014 and has plenty of support, so not everyone was against the zero-tolerance policy.
These people that we have coming across the border illegally are breaking the rules. Oh, I have no feelings for them at all.
Yes, I love children a great deal, but to me, it's up to the parents to do things rightfully and legally.
Politics aside, there are real families involved here. And, you know, the Statue of Liberty says, give us your huddled masses. And so I want to remain a country that's our motto.
While Trump supporters had differing views of the recent policy, all of them said they want the president and Congress to pass some type of immigration reform.
A new poll shows President Trump is gaining support in Arizona. The poll conducted by Data Orbital finds the president's favorability is up this month. The poll conducted last week finds his approval rating with Arizona voters is at 46%. It was at 41% in April. Now, the data is from 550 registered voters. The president's support is nearly split down the middle when it comes to independents. It's at 80% for Republican voters and less than 10% with Democratic voters.
The arguments over immigration are not about to quiet down. The House lawmakers will look to pass new legislation tomorrow. House Speaker Paul Ryan says the measure will increase funding for border security, solve issues with DACA, and help enforce current immigration laws. Additionally, Ryan said this bill will keep families intact.
The administration says it wants Congress to act, and we are. Tomorrow, the House will vote on legislation to keep families together. Under this bill, when people are being prosecuted for illegally crossing the border, families will remain together under DHS custody throughout the length of their legal proceedings.
The bill does not include any language requiring E-Verify or limiting grants to sanctuary cities. Also, Immigration and Customs Enforcement will receive no additional funding.
Governor Doug Ducey held a re-election rally at a U-Haul location in Tempe this morning. He spoke about his plans to secure Arizona's schools, economy, and border to a warehouse full of supporters. Ducey intends to pass the Safe Arizona Schools plan and increase border security.
We're going to expand our efforts at the border. 24/7 police coverage in all our border counties. New technology to connect all our police forces across the state. And tougher penalties for drug cartels and human traffickers.
Ducey did not comment on the separation of families at the border during the rally. His other plans include getting every student across the state connected to internet and focusing on helping those with addiction and mental health problems.
Coming up on Cronkite News, for years we've heard the horror stories surrounding the opioid crisis.
Well, it's now time to push for legislation. Republicans say they're ready to act and claim that stopping the epidemic will secure the Arizona-Mexico border.
Plus, showing some compassion for the less fortunate, how One Valley Police Department is working to help the homeless.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland.
In Washington.
In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
The border is not the only hot topic issue in Washington. Lawmakers are working to fix the opioid epidemic. They gathered today to explain how the two issues are related, as Danny Coble reports from our Washington bureau.
As a doctor, Congressman Roger Marshall knows something about prevention, and when it comes to preventing opioid abuse, he says that prevention starts at the border.
Focus is trying to figure out what can we do to prevent this from happening in the first place. So, number one is I'm excited that we're going to appropriate $25 billion to build a better security wall to help prevent a lot of these drugs from coming in.
Border security was a common theme this morning at a gathering of about a dozen Republican House members who talked about the importance of fighting the opioid epidemic. They had plenty to talk about. Last week, the House voted on roughly 39 bills aimed at the epidemic, with more coming to the floor today. One of those bills is the Stop the Importation and Trafficking of Synthetic Analogies Act, which was passed in the House on Friday.
And then another piece of it is also the synthetic drugs, the stopping the flow of fentanyl into the country. And one of our bills last week, I believe it was, dealt with the Postal Service and some things we needed to tweak around the law to have some better tools and resources for law enforcement to stop that.
Many of the measures deal with fentanyl, a synthetic drug that mimics the effects of other opioids, but is often far more dangerous. Inhaling even a little can pose a deadly risk for law enforcement officers, which is why one bill would fund technology to safely screen for the drug. Fentanyl can be produced here, but is often smuggled through the border, another reason lawmakers here keep returning to the issue of border security.
Whenever we can use technology to, I think that's what we'll be using to intercept it at the borders as well as through the mail.
The Stop the Importation and Trafficking of Synthetic Analogies Act was passed Friday. The act would penalize drug traffickers instead of users and would streamline the process to determine if a synthetic drug is considered illegal. That bill had 75 co-sponsors, including two Arizona Congresswomen, Martha McSally and Kirsten Sinema. In Washington, Danny Coble, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is dedicated to covering the opioid crisis in Arizona and nationwide. You can watch our documentary Hooked RX from prescription to addiction and find resources for getting help online at hookedrx.org.
The FBI and U.S. Marshals are warning the public of nationwide scammers claiming to be court officials, law enforcement, or U.S. Marshals, including Arizona Marshal David Gonzalez. Scammers are attempting to collect money by saying people need to pay a fine or face being arrested for failure to report for jury duty or some other legal matters. The victims are told to purchase a prepaid debit card or a gift card and provide the card number to pay. You can report such calls to the U.S. Marshals Service Office in Phoenix at 602-382-8768.
It's always dangerous to live on the streets.
And it can prove deadly when trying to survive the Arizona summer heat. Coming up on Cronkite News, the police and volunteers work to connect the homeless to a variety of resources available to them.
And we were lucky enough to see a little bit of precipitation, but now we're back to the hot and dry. I'll explain why coming up.
This is my last broadcast as the anchor man of the CBS Evening News, and that's the way it is.
Carrying on the baton of those who came before us, our superb team of journalists, writers, reporters, editors, producers work each and every week to tell the stories critical to you. For Arizona news that matters, tune into Cronkite News weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
Officially from 36, and he hooks it in. Arizona State wins. Keeping one deep, and it is caught. Jalen Strong. Do you believe it?
Millions of people die every year from drinking dirty water. I would never have felt I had the ability to do something without ASU pushing me. We built filtration systems out of local materials with the people. To see those kids drink clean water for the first time, it's the most rewarding feeling that you can ever have. I went to ASU because I wanted to change the world. The thing I never would have expected is how the world would have changed me.
Will the light rail come to South Phoenix? A project was voted on and approved to bring the train to a 6-mile stretch from downtown Phoenix to Baseline Road. But many residents and business owners are working to derail the expansion.
We open for anything. We open for to have the community in peace. Right now, the community is confronting one and each other, and it means we have a problem in South Phoenix right now with the light rail. The political, they need to stop for 90 days and make more studies and listen to the community.
At a recent city council meeting, many South Phoenix residents voiced their concerns that they were not notified about the light rail coming to their community. Others want the decision to expand the light rail to go to the voters and be on the November ballot. Now, the City Council is currently meeting to discuss the issues. Cronkite News will have a full report Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Maricopa County was under a high pollution advisory today, and we are dealing with another one for tomorrow. The advisories are due to ozone levels exceeding the federal health standard. Those most affected are kids, older adults, those who work or exercise outside, and those with respiratory diseases. The high ozone levels can create health issues such as shortness of breath, irritation of the throat and lungs, headaches, and nausea. Officials recommend that people carpool, use public transit, telecommute, or drive as little as possible. And with the pollution advisory in effect, what can we expect our weather to be like?
Well, Lauren Sheeler's in our weather center with today's forecast.
Well, we're currently sitting at 107, sunny, just a little light breeze if you're heading out right now. Hot and dry today, quite the opposite of what we saw Texas experiencing today. Lots of action on our satellite and radar, lots of precipitation in places like Dallas, Houston. Now, you might ask yourself, a state like Texas, it's relatively the same distance to the equator as our state, so why do we get stuck with this dry heat? Now, it's due to a couple of different factors. Yes, we do have a high pressure system that persistently sits over our state for the majority of the year. But also, we don't have our friend elevation this summer. When we have hot air rising, it cools. And when we're stuck in the valley, this low elevation, It's not our friend, where we might not get those cooler temperatures that other states might get. Also, we don't have a lot of moisture in our air, so we're going to see our heat expanding. Now, other states might have a little more moisture in their air, and it's just easier for our sun to heat up our air because it's drier than air that has a little bit more moisture to it. So what it means, bottom line, is we're kind of stuck. So what do we do to help ourselves out a little bit? We're hopefully drinking lots of water, purchasing sunscreen, purchasing makeup that perhaps has SPF in it. We're staying in those air-conditioned places, perhaps public places like libraries. And if you're all about working out, you might want to stay skipping the hike to Camelback and taking your workout indoors. You could also head up north. We typically, of course, see cooler temperatures up north. We saw 89 up at the Grand Canyon, 88 in Flagstaff. Otherwise, triple digits across the board. And this heat looks like it's sticking with us. It's not going anywhere. Taking a look at our 7-day forecast, even our lows are on the rise, creeping into those low 80s. And continuing into your work week, we're going to see 105 on Monday, 109 on Tuesday, 107 on Wednesday. So this heat is not going anywhere. So you might want to take those heat safety precautions mentioned earlier to heart. For Cronkite Weather, I'm Lauren Sheeler.
Recent statistics show that there are over 37,000 homeless individuals across the state.
Well, members of one Valley City spent the day trying to make an impact. Coming up on Cronkite News, from medical care to community resources, how some homeless individuals receive some much-needed assistance.
I like working for Cronkite News because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues in all across the state of Arizona.
Gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and the state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
Peoria Police Department is reaching out to help their city's homeless community.
Reporter Emily Richardson spoke with attendees of the department's homeless outreach event.
I'm 70 years old. I need to get inside instead of outside.
Steve Osman is a Peoria resident who has been homeless on and off for 13 years. According to Steve, he was unable to prove his identity because he couldn't get a hold of his birth certificate. And instead of seeking help, he took to the streets.
That's not my nature to reach out for help. 70 years. I lived a long time by myself. Yeah.
According to the Maricopa Association of Governments, the total number of unsheltered persons has grown 27% from last year, and Peoria police say they have seen this trend in their city.
We have a lot of homeless people living within the city, and this is pretty much a valley-wide thing. It's a nationwide thing. It's growing and growing, and you can't just arrest it away.
Detective Scott realized that going out and speaking with people who are homeless and learning their stories was the best way to help them get off the streets. And that's what they did with Steve.
What he did in 15 minutes, I couldn't do that for 3 years, man. He had my fingerprints, and he went down and verified who I was. He got me my Social Security and my driver's license.
And Detective Scott says seeing people get the help they need is why she does the job. In Peoria, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, join us for a special hour-long debate as 4 Republican candidates challenge Superintendent of Public Instruction Diane Douglas. That's Wednesday at 5 and again at 10:30 on Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, we're at the U.S.-Mexico border, where children and their families are seeking legal asylum. Why the process is so difficult. That's Wednesday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from...
I'm David Goldstein, owner of Biltmore Loan and Jewelry. We buy or loan on upscale assets. We have over 30 years of experience in determining values of automobiles, jewelry, art, collectibles, and antiques. For more information and appointments, biltmoreloan.com.
The London Tube is expanding. The city hums above as a massive tunneling machine burrows over a station, teeming with commuters. Passing above their head. Super Tunnel on Nova.
Tonight at 8 on Arizona PBS. Explore new ideas and new worlds here on Arizona PBS, a community service of Arizona State University.
Arizona PBS deeply appreciates every gift we receive, and we are proud to honor our Executive Society. These supporters believe in the mission of public television and are making a real impact in our community. If you would like to join the Executive Society, please call the number below or log on to azpbs.org to join. Thank you.
Coming up next on Arizona PBS, Life and World. Arizona PBS congratulates its winners of the 2018 Telly Awards. With 17 trophies, the most in station history, Arizona PBS continues its tradition of producing award-winning local programming and its dedication to excellence for viewers like you. Thank you. Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
Hi, I'm Alberto Rios. This week on Books & Company, Pung Shepherd, talking about her novel, The Book of M.
Post-apocalyptics aren't so much about how everything ends, but how everything starts again, and could it be different or could it be better? You know, if you did have a chance to start over or change something really big, could we do it?
Friday night at 7:30 on Arizona PBS. Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Arizona Highways Magazine is for people who strive to enjoy and are inspired by Arizona's unique outdoor experience, rich history, and diverse culture. Subscription information at arizonahighways.com/PBS.
Like you, we get up and go to work every day. We're on the job, keeping you connected at home, at work, and to what matters most. Others count on you, so you can count on us. We're here restoring power quickly when storms hit, even fixing issues before they happen. We're making solar more reliable, investing in battery storage, and constantly updating the grid. We're here working 24/7, keeping Arizona on.
Arizona Horizon is made possible with the support of Arizona Highways Magazine, Escape, Explore, Experience, and by APS, working 24/7 to keep Arizona on, and by the contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station.
Good evening and welcome to the special Election 2018 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight's show is a debate sponsored by the Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission, and we are on our election set where we will be hosting debates every Wednesday through the start of early voting in August and then on into the general election season. Tonight we hear from the 5 Republican candidates for State Superintendent of Public Instruction. As with all of Arizona Horizon's debates, this is an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates running for an important state office. As such, interjections and even interruptions are allowed, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we will do our best to make sure that that happens. Superintendent of Public Instruction oversees Arizona's public